everybody, I'm Wendy Murdoch, and this is Webinars with Wendy. I am continuing my series of webinars, and we're getting more organized, I hope. Tonight, my guest is Jenna, and we've known each other for, I don't know, how long, Jenna? A while.
Years, but
yeah. And I'll let Jenna introduce herself. I always make my guests introduce themselves. But Julia Reynolds has also joined us because Julia is a great friend, and she's going to help with asking Jenna questions and kind of guiding me along here on this little journey that we're going to take. I'm going to let Jenna introduce herself, and then we're going to roll right into our topic. So, Jenna, take it away.
Sure. So I am Jenna Knudsen. I'm a life coach exclusively for equestrians. That came about 15 years ago now. I've been coaching only equestrians, which has been amazing to just be within our group, our people. And then 9 years ago, I had the opportunity. So I used to go barn to barn and help people with goal setting, getting physically fit, confidence in the saddle, all the things. But it was live, and I, like Wendy, traveled all the time, and it was great. I loved the interaction. But a few months after I would be at a barn, people would call me and say, Jenna, we started the habits, but then we didn't stick with it. I did the vision pages, but without you there, I didn't make new ones. So I thought, how could I give everyone a tool? Like, what would keep everyone excited and accountable? And we could still be together as a community, but what could bind us? So what came out of that was a paper planner, which I'm a paper person. If you love technology, I'm probably not your favorite girl, but paper is magic. And this planner, which is now 9 years old, has—
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So 2025 is going to be the big decade. But what's great with that, which Julia knows because she works with me on it, is every year you morph and change. I ask everyone, like, what's working, what's not. And so after 9 years, we've got the planner to a really good place. And a lot of what we do, Wendy, just meshes so nicely with what you do. So I'm so honored to be on your webinar series. Thank you.
Oh, thanks, Jenna. It's really fun. So, Jenna, your topic was about like having, what was the title exactly now? I love that everybody loved the title, and now I'm having a brain lapse, but
slowing down to speed up.
That's it. Slowing down to speed up. And of course, I just think if you just keep speeding up, you will finally get there. So I'm the hamster on the wheel. That's my strategy. But I think that your topic is really timely and maybe going to be helpful for not just my audience, but also for me.
Sure. So slowing down to speed up is really like a foundational point of my coaching, because what I found was the world is only getting busier and faster, and technology, it's like we're getting a hose at us of information. I mean, you guys, both of you on interviewing me, think about just the horse videos that we can watch, or the horse information, or the riding. I mean, it's endless what's coming at us at a faster and faster speed. So what I think people tend to do is then take on too much. They want to do everything at once. And then you get overwhelmed, then you get burnout, and then you get this weird, like, it's almost being paralyzed with too many options. So slowing down to speed up means pausing, breathing, getting intentional, setting a time aside to just be, which is counterintuitive. People think if they're busy, that's the way to be. But busy doesn't mean that you're productive or successful. You may be getting, it looks like lots of stuff done, but it's not the important stuff. So slowing down to speed up means learning to prioritize, learning to say no more often to a lot of things so you can say yes to what's really important. Slowing down means that when you wake up, your morning is so intentional. You don't grab your phone and with eyes half open start being on social media. You do things that are solely for you. So there is something beautiful in such a speedy world at the thought of slowing down. It's counterintuitive. It adds sacredness to your day. And yeah, that's the starting point. But the planner actually gives you the tool to slow down and to reflect, to think before you make your next step, to congratulate yourself instead of like getting one thing done. Okay, now I'm going to get the next thing done. So there's so many benefits to slowing down. Really.
And
go ahead, Julie.
Sorry. I've known both of you for, oh my gosh, quite a few years now. And I see so many parallels in what Jenna teaches with her life coaching and what Wendy teaches in the saddle. Like that slowing it down, getting it right before you move on to the next thing. I just feel like there are so many parallels that the lessons cross over.
Yeah. And, I think that when I teach, it's really funny because I was just at the Certified Horsemen's Association meeting in Colorado. That's why I was in Colorado. And I listened to this other teacher, and she said so many directions to the student, some of them conflicting, some of them not well explained, some of them just too many. And I sat there and I was like, wow, in my teaching, at least, maybe not in my my at-home life, but in my teaching, I really try to slow that down and give people one thing at a time to think about. And I was really paying attention to that when I did my teaching that day, because I didn't know how the students were going to be able to process all that other information that they had coming at them.
Completely. And so think about that in life coaching. So we have all these goals, but if you throw too much at a person, it just becomes overwhelmed. And too much can even look like if you want to start a yoga practice and for your riding, why say to yourself, I have to do an hour of yoga 5 days a week? Like, it's just too much. Whereas if you said to yourself, I'm going to do 5 minutes 3 times a week, and you did it, and then you build on that success. I just love it. It's micro stepping your way into success, and you can use it in your riding. You can use it in, in your life.
That reminds me, in the whole rider course, I showed everybody an app called Wins. Unfortunately, I think it's gone off the App Store, but it was about, a friend of mine told me about it. And of course, since I can't write fast enough, that's my biggest problem. But on my little app, I could type in like my small wins. And I think that's what you're talking about, is that we have to acknowledge the little things that we've done well, because those little things add up. And so I tend to not be a like when I could type, I was so happy, because nobody can read my handwriting. That's a problem.
But you can read your handwriting. So in your planner, that's all that matters. So speaking of wins, like one of the things that's been added over the years in the planner is journal space. Because when I started, it was strictly a planner, and I sort of dictated, like I actually wrote yoga, running, all these different things. And over time, I realized it's so individualized. So I made it so that the planner, the person could write it in. But to have a space to just think about writing 3 wins every day at the end of the year, to go back through your planner and look at that, is like, it's really meaningful to people.
Yeah, because we don't acknowledge the things we do well. One of the questions I will ask my students when I'm giving a clinic is, I say, what do you do well? And they're like, and it doesn't matter, adult, child, especially ponycub kids, they all hem and haw. And then I say, what do you do badly? Oh, I can't sit the trot. I can't do this. I can't do that. I can't do the other thing. It's fascinating to me how we want to focus on the things that we can't do, as opposed to the things that we do well, at least as equestrians. Really? And, I think that in other sports that's different. I remember when I took tennis lessons and I did the shot, and the guy made me stop, and I'm like, oh my God, what did I do? And he's like, no, feel that again. Close your eyes. I thought he was crazy, right? Because he made me focus on the win. And I was like, but I've never got experience, and I take that into my teaching, is to help people focus on their wins. I think it's so important.
Huge deal. It's so that's a really powerful mindset shift. Another powerful one that the planner really reinforces is gratitude. So it's bigger and more powerful than just writing 3 gratitudes, which is wonderful. And if someone starts with that, great place to start. But what it encourages you to do is start appreciating everything everywhere. Like, just imagine life, you guys, that everywhere you looked, you were like, thank you for the lights in my house. Thank you that I have plants. Thank you for my books. Like, you retrain your brain to see gratitude everywhere. it affects anxiety, depression, all kinds of things. And so, and that's not like, these are all things that I just don't think our phone can give us. And there's something magical about writing it, free with your hands, not typing.
Yeah, I do think everybody has a little different style, and it's important not to limit people to have a particular style. I mean, I totally understand writing, and I totally get that. I think, for some people, they might feel, well, that's not my style, but Post-it notes, anything they could put it in their planner or whatever, Post-it notes or some way to make that acknowledgement. And, I think the place where when you talk about gratitude, one of the things that I think about so often is how people, like with Surefoot, I'm just grateful the horse lets me put a pad under his foot. And if he wants to walk off, it's totally okay. And I find it really fascinating that people have so many shoulds for their horses, what they should do, how they should be, instead of being grateful that, the horse actually walked in with them or, stood quietly in the cross ties. I think that we need to pay more attention, not just our own personal gratitude, but be grateful for the gift of our horses in our lives.
Absolutely. I mean, horses really, they show us all of that if we're willing, again, to the theme, to slow down, to speed up. So that theme can go into the barn. I encourage everyone, when you get to the barn, to sit for 5 minutes and bring your energy down, like be intentional so that when you get to the barn, you're not just rushing around and whipping your horse out of the stall. And so these little habits that seem kind of, fly by night, they really add up and they make a difference. And then it applies to you, Wendy, and all the riding that you do. Like if someone comes to you in a big rush, I'm sure you have to take the time to bring their energy down. But if people start being intentional, then it shifts everything. It's pretty amazing.
And their horse feels that. They feel that energy.
100%.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I had a little quarter horse, and when I was stressed, he was stressed. He and I, at one point I had some health problems and my liver enzymes were elevated, but I found out his were first.
Oh, wow.
Right. And I don't know why his were, but mine were for a good reason, which it's solved now. But yeah, I mean, they pick up on this stuff with us. And so what we take to them is so important, even though I'm as guilty as the next one of being like, oh my God, I got to run to the barn and feed everybody because I have to get home to do a webinar.
Right. But so again, even stuff like that, just to give an example. So I really recommend people plan their day the night before. It's good on so many levels. It gives you a sense of clarity and peace, and you go to bed knowing at least this is what the bones of my day are going to look like. So then as you go through your day, you put the important things first, you prioritize, like there's one spot that's called the big 3. Those are the 3 things that you must in your mind do that day to feel like a good day. So I teach everyone, don't should on yourselves. Like there's no shoulding. What you want, my intention is for everyone who uses the planner to eventually truly be living days by design. They designed them, doing less of what you don't want to do, more of what you do, and just feeling good about it, because there's no one's getting stars on the refrigerator at the end of life. Like I know anyone who's in our age group knows what I mean, but there's just no prize for busyness. But we will be at the end of our lives and think, was it meaningful? Did I do the things with my horse that I wanted to do? Did I become the person my horse wanted me to become? That planning is so much more than a to-do list. It's becoming the person you want to become. Really.
So it sounds like one of the things, especially, when we come to the end of a year, and this is October, but, pretty soon we're almost in November and we'll be at the end of the year. And when I taught Pony Club, one of the things that I did with the kids is at the end of the year, I had them look back at what they wrote at the beginning of the year in terms of what they wanted to accomplish. So the exercise at the beginning of the year is what are your goals for the year? And then at the end of the year, we would look at that again. So instead of like making resolutions, it was like making successes. And, sometimes it's so hard to realize the gains you've made because you're so in the everyday of it.
Absolutely. So I just want to give a visual for anyone who doesn't have a planner. So the beginning is your vision pages. So it's a lot about my horse and things that make me happy. So these are not goals. Like this isn't, when you look at a vision page, it's supposed to evoke an emotion like, oh, this is why I wake up in the morning. This is why I do what I do. And there's 8 vision pages. After the vision pages, we get a little more chop, and then we get into goals. And like you said, Wendy, this is so at the beginning of the year, you clearly write out in all different topics, financial, career, health, relationship, and riding. What are you going for? Because if you don't aim for something, if you don't put a target on what you want, it's so like the world's just always pulling your attention. We can all just go a million different shiny penny ways. But when you say, this is what I want, it becomes real, it becomes tangible. And then each month we take those goals and we divide them down for the month and then for the week. So it's taking anyone's dream, equestrian dream, health, you want to write a book, you want to launch a course, and breaking it down into small bite-sized pieces that are doable. So that's like one big part of the planner is doing that.
So Jen, I have to ask you a question, and I'm pretty serious. What if you really don't know what your dreams and your goals are?
So then this is the perfect place to have this is sort of your experimenting. This is where you put down all your thoughts and ideas, and your vision can be keep your vision there. Here's where there's no shooting on yourself. No one has to put goals at the beginning of the year, but as you go through and each month there's questions to answer, and there's information being pulled out of you, it will come to you, Wendy. And here's the thing, not everyone's goal is to ride in the Grand Prix. Not everyone's goal is some big lofty goal. Some people's goal is to, I don't know, nap in a hammock more. I mean, that's kind of extreme. That's not a good one. But I'm just
No, actually, that's a great one. That's a great one. I've never napped in a hammock. Okay.
I want to make that a goal. Exactly. So that's another part. The reason the planner has gotten so good in its 9th year is it's not telling you who you should be at all. It's a blank canvas with all these compartments that you're filling in your feelings day by day, week by week, and things start to percolate. You look back and you think, oh, I did that in February. Awesome. I'm going to move that into March, and I'm not going to take that. So it's like a living creature of your goals and dreams. And you can change it. You can do so much with it. It's really so that the person can design what they want. And then the other part of what if you don't know your goals? So, everyone who has a planner is in the community. When you're in a community, and I know you have an amazing community, Wendy, when you surround yourself with like-minded people, even when you're having a shit day, you're inspired by those people. So as long as we all take turns with our ups and downs, someone's always inspiring you. Someone can always use a leg up. The community really makes this meaningful and special, and I think was the missing component. So for 3 years, I had no community, and people said oh, I started using the planner and then it got dust on it and I didn't use it. And I was like, all right, how do we solve that one? And then Facebook was a big thing. So up came the community, and now there's just always someone there to inspire you.
So, I mean, how can we take these things, not just for horses, but I think what I'm hearing from you is that things like community are really important in anyone's life. And it's not, I mean, the planner is great, and it's great to have horse community. But I think the bigger message that I'm hearing from you is that we all need a sense of community, that's in our DNA. That's part of what we are. And I think I'd like you to talk a little bit more about, why is it that community is so important to people, and what happens when we don't have that kind of community?
So Brene Brown is one of my favorite people. I just love her. And she talks about belonging and fitting in. So fitting in is when you change yourself a little, you change your mannerisms or how you dress or how you speak because you want to fit into a certain group. And if you fit in, great, you may get a little satisfaction, but you had to change yourself to be there. Belonging is when you show up as yourself, you feel safe, you're allowed to be vulnerable. And that's the kind of community that I think is the most powerful, because we all want to feel wanted and that we belong somewhere and that we're seen and heard, that our voice matters, that if we were hurting, someone would care, that if we have an opinion, it means something to someone. So community to me is everything in this world, like connection, knowing that you're not alone on this big journey, that when the world seems like it's on fire, you can come into your community and say, I'm afraid, I'm, all of the things. You can have the emotions and people will only support you. So I'm a huge fan of, finding your people and being inclusive. I can't do mean girl stuff. I can't tolerate it.
Well, but see, that brings up a really good point, because I think a lot of people get caught up in what was the other word? Fitting in,
right?
But and they don't even realize that that's what they're doing versus being in a community that actually cares at a deeper level. And it's really hard for, I think, to recognize, like, it's so easy to get caught up in that and that you don't recognize it. So what are some of the ways somebody can recognize if they're in a group that maybe this isn't the right group for them? Maybe they need to look for another group. So what are some of the key alerts, sort of the...
Right. So I guess like in Smarties, we're 7 years old. I take it as a top-down approach that I put out there what I think is the gold standard of kindness, respect, agreeing to disagree. It's all like, if you come from a place of love, you can say whatever you want. If you find yourself being turned off by what other people are saying or wanting to kind of strike out at someone, like, people know the emotions they get if they're honest with themselves. Like, ooh, she said that, I want to write this. You might want to look at yourself and think, is this the community for me? It's so personal, Wendy. It's hard to, I monitor it the best that I can, but I think people inside know, do I feel safe here? Are these people, because it's not about, like, in our group, there's so many riding disciplines. So that can't be the belonging or not that, put that aside. I don't do any politics in our group because that is just a garbage can fire. Like, that can never go well. And I do try to, I do a lot of spirituality, but not religious. So I do try to keep it like human beings loving each other, that type of thing. And people get 2 strikes and they're out, because the world is so harsh. I am so protective that we have a space that people are safe.
Well, I think, that's the thing is, if you look at Facebook, I mean, I have managed my feed so that I only get horses, dogs, and cats.
I'm right with you. We're the same algorithm.
There's occasions when I'll go into another group and I'm astounded by the way people treat each other.
Completely.
And yet people dive back in. And so, what is it about us? And that affects our whole day, because that, if we're going to try and make positive goals and make positive changes and make better habits, what is it about us that keeps getting dragged back into situations and where it's not that supportive, or that there is this other thing? What is it that about us?
I really think it comes down to habit. I think many of us, especially during COVID, we've just become scrollers. Like scrolling has become a way of life. And I personally don't think it's healthy. I think it leads to more depression, more anxiety. So, what I do in all of my coaching, social media can be a beautiful thing. Like, I'm not anti social media. It's how you use it, it's how you prioritize it. You know, if you go on and you have these two groups that you love, go into the groups, get some inspiration, learn something, and then shut it down. It takes discipline. We're all, you know, this is part of the slow down to speed up.
Well, that's where I was going, is like, it's amazing how fast we are flipping through all that stuff and how mindless and in many ways useless it is.
Totally useless. Think about this, you guys. Now, if a video is 5 minutes, you're like, 5 minutes. Like, if they can't get us the information in 45 seconds, we're done. So I'm trying to just bring back, to the best of my ability, some sacredness in life, like slowing it down. So throughout all of my coaching, I have everyone writing letters to each other, snail mail, because what a beautiful thing. Think about how happy you are to receive a piece of mail. It's like winning the lottery. And I know there's tech people out there going, she's ridiculous. We have email. It's not, you know, and if that works for people, it's great. But slowing down, reading books again, playing a game of cards with someone in your family instead of scrolling. Now, that said, I love Pinterest. I go on, I give myself, so I do 10-minute blocks. I look at my phone and I say, you have 10 minutes to go on whatever app. And you guys know how fast 10 minutes is. That's like 3 animal videos, you know, but
that's a great suggestion. Like, you can set a timer on your phone and it can go off in 10 minutes.
Then it's a prize. Like, then you're like, oh, this is my little, because I get it, the little dopamine prize that we get. But it's when it becomes like detrimental. You're not writing your book. You're not doing the work. You're not spending time with your horse doing Wendy Murdoch stuff. Like, come on, you know, that it's sucking our life, and it's very insidious. I look around airports. I look around restaurants. No one is looking at each other.
Right.
Everyone's looking down, and it kind of hurts my soul.
Yeah, you know, when I lived in Australia, I was in 80, I'm dating myself, 87 to 88. And, you know, like, you couldn't afford to call anybody. It cost you a fortune, right? So you'd write letters, and the letters had to go all the way across the ocean, and then they had to come all the way back across the ocean, you know?
Now,
and you had to, and
everything's instantaneous.
Right. But you also had to, like, you had to learn to be able to sit with whatever that was for that length of time while you're waiting for an answer, or resolve it in another way instead of having this, like you say, this instant resolve. And yet we think that it's better use of time, but in many ways it's not. And that's the weird thing. It's like, it's so much faster and quicker, and we can get this done and keep rolling. But why is that? What is this inverse relationship between immediacy and time?
Because I believe that with technology and with so many resources being at our fingertips, everything's instantaneous. We don't have to think anymore. Just Google it. We don't even use our brains anymore. We don't use maps. We don't, and I know I'm sounding like such a granny being like this, but I think there's a happy medium. So in my own life, I'm working to find a happy medium. I want to be on social media. I don't want it to own me. You've just said it. You want to be on it, but you don't want it to own you. I think that is such a great statement. Everybody should just memorize that one, because therein lies the difference. The utilizing it, but not being dominated by it. I don't know, that I think that's the best thing to really keep in mind. Right. So part of planning is not letting the outer world own you. Planning, so you set an intention every day. How do I choose to feel? That's pretty powerful. You wake up, you're like, you know what? Today I choose to feel focused. And you look at that all day, so that just immediately sets you up. Then you do your gratitude. Then you do your most important tasks. How are you moving your body? What are you doing with your horse at the barn? you're tracking your water, your meal planning, and then you're writing out your whole day, so that at the end of the day, what's meaningful to you is where you spent your time. Because if you don't spend your time, the world will spend your time for you.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Easily.
And then, okay, so I totally get this, that if we set our intention and we write it out and we plan it ahead, it sets it up. And I do know absolutely that you can program your dreams. That's how I wrote my master's thesis. I program my dreams every night to write my master's thesis because
I love that.
I was so stuck. But what about spontaneity? What about like when, shit hits the fan, or how does that play into like, do I plan every moment so much that if somebody says, hey, you want to go and do something? I'm like, no, I got my planner and I have to stay on this track.
Right. That's absolutely a great question. So it's super individualized. I always feel like God's laughing while we're making plans, and that's kind of true. But what planning does is that it's the bones, it's the setup of what your intention is to do that day. But being spontaneous is like the sauce of life. That's the beauty of it, because you can always move that thing to the next day. So no, your plan, nothing's written in stone, but it does guide you. So one of the fun areas that is totally new is a habit tracker. So a habit tracker, it just looks like that. And you can put up to 10 new habits in, 1 to 10, and then you track. If you're doing it every day, you can change it. So every week now, instead of telling someone what the habits are, they get to write them in. So you want to be spontaneous and do something else. I totally believe in that. But there's a calmness that comes from being intentional, from designing your days. And then all the other stuff is just fun surprises on top. So yeah,
well, sometimes there's surprises that aren't fun.
Right, that's true. And so that's the other thing. So, all right, the shit hits the fan. You get a bad diagnosis. You fall, you get hurt, all of that. Then what planning can do is slow you down even more. You can write on one whole day, like, you're resting. My plan is rest. My plan is healing. I can write quotes in here. Like, there is no right or wrong way to use it, but it really makes you intentional wherever your focus is. We have a lot of riders who get injured and all of a sudden their plans are up in smoke.
Yeah.
Then they start writing inspirational things in their planners. They write quotes. It keeps them going and gives them hope that they will get back to where they started.
Yeah, because that's the thing is, I know some people that it's kind of where's the middle? I always talk about where's the middle. You have the people that everything is so planned and so efficient and that sort of thing. And then the other people that nothing is, right? Mm-hmm. And so everything's just, I can remember way back in the early days of working with Linda Tellington Jones, you'd go to a clinic and you'd think you were going to be doing this. And she'd just nope, no, we're all getting in cars and we're going over to this place and we're going to go. And it's like, okay. And you're constantly like sort of off balance because you thought you had it sorted out. And then I get some people that when they come to my clinics, they want to know exactly what's going to happen every minute. I'm like, I don't know, because I don't know. I have a certain
schedule in the middle that works for you. And that's a great point. Like, this whole planner is somewhere in the middle. If someone wants to write on every line, they can. If someone wants to be super vague, they can. So every year I worked harder and harder to make it work for everybody. So it's not me telling you how to plan. It's you just having this beautiful place to make your plan.
So, okay. So if we need to slow down to get things done faster, and we've made a plan, okay, mm-hmm. We've got a plan. How does slowing down actually make us progress faster? How does that work?
Because when you slow down, you become more focused on what's important. Think about it. When you're in hyper mode, like multitasking is hurting all of us. Let me say that again. Multitasking is hurting you. If we single task, just do the one thing from start to finish, you're in it, you will have such a better day. You'll feel calmer. You're more creative. Multitasking, every time your brain switches from that thing to that thing, you're losing creativity. It's just so much harder.
Well, isn't it a fallacy, actually? We don't actually multitask. I mean, that's what we call it, but I don't think that's actually what's happening in our brain.
Yeah, so multitasking is actually a term that came about, I think, like at the time of computers, because they would say that the computer could multitask. So it could run multiple tasks at the same time. And then it got adopted for people. But people cannot multitask. It's like the biggest fallacy. Like it's not a real thing. And it actually takes on average 15 minutes for you to refocus after you've been distracted by something. So if you're multitasking, it's really just you're constantly stuck in that 15 minutes of refocusing.
Exactly.
But this is really important because now on computers, I think they actually have focus mode, at least on some computers, where it will not send you, because I don't know about you guys, but I spend a lot of time on the computer, and you get these notifications that are constantly popping up and dragging you over to this little blob over here, and you're like, wow, there's that little blob again. And so you're being distracted by your own computer but you're probably getting dopamine. And that's the problem, is that they know I turn all the notifications off on my phone, or at least as many as I can.
That's a suggestion I give everyone. Turn the notifications off so that you have to actively go there to look at it. Otherwise, every time that little light goes off, your eye is like a little bit on.
Right. It's like squirrel, more squirrels. I heard of squirrels.
So another fun creative way. So say the day goes 5 a.m. to 10 p.m. Some people want to write, 6 a.m. jog, 7 a.m. breakfast. They do it very linear. Some people, you can color code it. Like you could put from 12 to 2 and color code it pink and call it content creation. There's so many ways you can time block where. What if on Saturdays you call that Creative Spirit Day? And that means that you go into town and you go anywhere you want. Like, it's your thing. You get to do it. But what you're doing is you're being intentional about it. You're not just letting any old thing happen. There's magic. There is magic in planning. I believe it.
Well, and it's interesting because the more I am going into backside business, right? I've been out there teaching for all my life, but the more I go into backside business, there is this very intentional success. To be successful, you need to take those quarterlies and sit down and actually spend time with them, and then plan out your goals and look at your numbers. And so this whole idea of planning it's not just for this, it's the way things get done. And sometimes when I look at ever drive past a construction site and you're like, I have no idea what this is going to look like in the end, but somebody does. Somebody's planned it all out before the first shovel ever went in the ground, because if they didn't, we wouldn't have it. Right. So,
and
planning
is, you take planning, the better the result is, not
right.
Just as you go.
Right. And so, I think that's really important. And the idea of multitasking is what we think they're doing, but actually you have somebody that's just really focusing on each aspect of whatever that task is. And so it's important for us to start realizing that spend that quality. I think maybe the way to think of it is quality time versus quantity time.
Completely. And then also realizing that it's fun. Like, I'm a huge fan of having fun in planning, because we're not walking to-do lists. Like, that's not the point. I know we all get dopamine when we check things off. And I always tell everyone, if you put an extra thing in your day, write it in just to check it off, just to get that little rush. Why not? It's our thing. But you want to have fun with this. You want to get your dreams and whatever that means to you, get it into reality. This is our one precious life. So I really encourage people to use planning to get that precious life out of them and into the real world.
Yeah. And it's so interesting because you see people that are like, there are people that see the world glass half full, and people that see the world glass half empty. And, it's interesting how I just wonder, I don't have any evidence whatsoever, if the people who see it more half empty are kind of letting their days slip by without setting goals or setting, things that they want to achieve. They just kind of see it as, well, it's just another day, and kind of let the world slide by, I think. You know what I mean?
I absolutely know what you mean. But I think what planning gives them the power to do is realize that the glass can be filled again. So no matter
that's great. Yeah.
Like no matter what your glass is, and that's the thing, you can start anywhere, anytime. Like it doesn't have to be January 1st. For me, every Monday is January 1st.
I think that's a really good point, because, you see people and it's like, I have someone upstairs. Oh, I'm going to start it after this event. Oh, I'm going to start after this event. Oh, I'm going to start after, and then it never gets started.
Right. The best time to start is now, truly. Yeah. And start small like that. I don't care if someone does a habit for 5 minutes. I call it a micro habit. Start your micro habit, and that's how you build. We put all this pressure on ourselves. We have to do it perfectly, and that's just no fun. Just have fun with it, but get started.
Yeah. Julia, what are you laughing at? You're laughing at something.
Because there's so many parallels between how you both look at your individual like little spaces that you're in, because I feel like with Wendy, it's the same thing. Like I've had the privilege of watching Wendy teach many times for weeks at a time. And that's exactly how she teaches things. It's like a micro habit. We don't have to fix all of the things right now. Let's just start with this. We get this. And then I've seen it also just like build a rider's confidence. And I've seen it in Jenna's Facebook group, where somebody starts to get confidence in this one little thing that they've been working on through a micro habit, and then everything else gets easier.
Yeah. Right. You don't need to have a big change. You need a change that is meaningful. And I think that that's the key.
And that it's sustainable. So that's why fun is so important, because if you hate going to the gym, don't go to the gym.
I don't go to the gym.
Right.
I don't go to the gym. The last thing I want to do is go to, and there's a gym not far from me, and I know people go, and it's the last thing I want to do is go to a gym.
So I would never, as a coach, say you need to go to the gym. It's just not sustainable. There's always a solution to get what you want in a way that is fun for you. Always.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's, you see people, well, of course they get addicted to that too. They get addicted to the habits that aren't necessarily productive habits. They're just habits.
Like scrolling.
Scrolling
social media is a habit. I mean, I even sadly saw my family. We're supposed to be watching a movie. No, everyone's eyes are darting to the movie, but they're also scrolling. I'm like, what is this? It makes
it's really, but it's so true that we don't actually watch the thing on TV anymore.
Right.
And so, I was over in Kenya, and I went to visit the people who started the safari company, his dad. 15 years, I'd never met Gordy's dad, Tony. And I finally got to go visit Tony. And when I went in, Susie, his wife, I looked at these beautiful needlepoint cushions that she had all around the house. And I was like, oh, I used to do needlepoint. And I realized what I do watching movies is I was scrolling or playing a game while watching the TV, which it really wasn't doing. And then I went, you know what? I asked her where she got her needlepoint from, and she told me, and now I'm doing needlepoint. So I'm doing something that at the end of the day, right? Not only am I moving because I'm having to pay attention to the colors, I'm going to have something at the end instead of the phone that looks exactly the same when you're done as when you started. Like that's my day, is looking at a box. It's exactly the
Wendy,
same.
that's such a perfect, tangible example of slowing down to speed up. You slowed down a habit, you're doing something creative. And there's so many ways we can apply that in our lives, just so many things. If someone could get intentional and say, can I just watch the movie and not be on my phone? Can we just eat dinner and no phones at the table? Can I lay in a hammock and watch the clouds go by? Like that's tough for people. They're like,
yeah,
I did it for a minute. Now I need to go look at, we just want all this stimulation. But I'd love for everyone to experiment with this, to just go sit outside and watch the sky, watch the birds, have no technology with you, and see how long until you get a little edgy. It's kind of interesting.
Yeah, I know that it doesn't take long. Because we've gotten into this little rabbit routine, you know. The other thing I started
have our horses. Horses definitely slow us down if we allow them. If we put our phones in the car and we're fully present, I'm sure everyone on the webinar has felt that. Like when you're with your horse, it's just this beautiful time warp.
So how can we, is there something we can do, like when we're going out to the barn, if we've been busy at the office, yeah, we've got our planner, yeah, we've made our lists, yeah, we've done all that, but you know, we've driven through traffic, we finally get there. What little micro habit can we start to develop to help us slow down in that moment?
In the moment, sure. So a great micro habit is when you park your car, sit and just take 5 deep breaths. Breathe in, hold it for 4 seconds, and breathe out. Do that 5 times. It just calms your nervous system down, and you walk into the barn as a completely different person. The second thing I love is to go into your horse's stall and either hug them or put your hands on them and just have a moment of connection before you start the whole let's go. So those 2 things. Also, like before we mount, to look at your horse, to touch him and say, we're going to do this now. Like, are you ready? Just to have that communication. It's almost like a respect thing. These little slow down moments really help your riding, your confidence, your whole energy around your horse.
Yeah, no, I think that's great. I think the 5 deep breaths is something, yeah, you know, you can have the sticky note on your dashboard that
right.
just starts, you know, to remind you.
Oh, another slow down to speed up habit, which is one of my favorites, is to train your brain that when you wake up in the morning, as soon as your eyes open, you just think the words, thank you. You start the day, and it's like, you can make yourself cry first thing in the morning because you're just saying thank you for all of it. All of it. You just woke up and you have it's my favorite habit that I do.
Yeah, that's actually a really interesting one. You know, I used to meditate, and recently I was like, you know, I need to get back to that. And so I get up in the morning now and I have to feed Buster. That's a priority. I got to feed the cat. But, you know, I realized that if I just tried to get started, it wasn't going to work. So I set my timer. I think I started with like 10 minutes. And then every day I add a minute on my timer, which is on my phone, but I add a minute. And I've been gradually building it. So like, there's another thing. It's like, we try to take too big a bite. Mm-hmm. And when we take too big of a bite and then we fail at that bite, then we're like, you know, then we throw everything out all at once, right? It's an all or nothing. We're so all or nothing. But I found that this has really helped me if I just say, okay, tomorrow I'm just going to set it for 1 more minute. And that I set the timer as soon as I start getting my blanket and sitting in my chair, so that I have like time built in to get organized, because you know, you got it, the cat.
That's setting yourself up for success. That's such a great tangible example. And meditation is one of the top will change your life habits in the world. Like, if everyone could meditate, we could change the world. Truly.
Yeah. And the thing, you know, so many people think meditation is something that, you know, you have to stare at a candle or chant. And I just focus on my breathing. Mm-hmm. It's a technique that I learned many years ago of just noticing my breath. And then as the thoughts come by, it's just acknowledging them and letting them go. Mm-hmm. And not worrying that, oh, I drifted off. Yeah, I drifted off. It's okay. And just start again. And so I think that that's, you know, the ability to not judge the thought that goes through, is just to acknowledge the thought that goes through. Because I think people think meditation is something that has to be, you know, we've created all kinds of crazy things, but just sitting out, like you say, and looking at the clouds is a form of meditation.
Absolutely.
Right? It's that letting your mind not be so busy.
Right. We can be on our horses walking the ring or walking the trails, and with each one of your horse's steps, think thank you. Thank you. Thank you. It creates just this beautiful energy. It calms you down. It connects you to your horse. These are all super simple habits. Instead of, have you ever looked in a riding ring and actually seen people on their phones riding?
Yeah, I've seen horses that stop cold when it rings. Okay, they're trained. They know it's like, okay, he's going to be on his phone.
Yeah, no. So it really, all of this, what you teach, what I teach, comes down to intentional living. You know, really deciding what's important to me and how can I do it. It's what we do every day that adds up. It's not what you do once in a while. So I'm also a huge fan of, it's great to be inspired. You go away to a retreat, you learn something and you're like, yay, like this is amazing. But then how do you implement it into your life? How do you make it tangible? And that's where planning is your friend. It's there to support you.
Yeah, no, I think that that's the biggest thing is people think that they can go off and have a really amazing experience and they're going to come home and it's all going to change. And you walk back into your environment with so many, I'm going to use the word triggers, so many triggers to your old habits, that it's really, really difficult sometimes, especially, you know, if you have a partner or a spouse and they're not interested in their changing their habits, that's a harder thing to lift, because you're not only confronting yourself, you're confronting the other person's, they're used to having you in a certain pocket, in a certain bucket, and now you're making that change, and that can threaten them because it's suddenly there's just a little shift in the environment that, you know, you're not scrolling while you're watching TV along with the other person, or, you know, you are getting up.
You're exercising. So guess what the remedy for that is? And it's not divorce. I'm not going to. It's your community. See, so that's why this is where social media is such a beautiful thing, because we can meet from around the world 24/7. Everyone's there. So you're not getting what you need at home. All right. You could get divorced, but if you're not going to, you go to your community and you get that connection that you need. And then you're okay to go back to your situation. So,
well, and exactly, like, sometimes we have this expectation that one person can fulfill all of our needs, and that is a fallacy.
Right.
You know, Julia, why are you laughing over there?
Because I was just having this thought the other day that I don't think it's one person supposed to be everything to you. It's like the people that you surround yourself with sort of fill the gaps that other people don't.
Right.
None of us are all things to all people.
No. And we're not all always perfect. And, you know, sometimes tempers will flare or emotions will get high. And I think, you know, there's the word resiliency that I always think about in horses and people, is that things can go wrong and go badly, but it doesn't have to break everything apart. You know, Robin Hood always would say, it's not what somebody does when things are going well. It's what do they do when they're going badly.
Right. When they're squeezed, what comes out.
Yeah. Yeah. And so I think that that's, you know, that's another place. And I have to admit that there have been times when I can remember in my life, like I so remember this. I was at a grocery store and I could have been nice or I could have been nasty. And I chose to be nasty. I was just like, whatever I was grumpy about, but I knew I did it consciously, right? I'm just going to be nasty. So, you know, sometimes we just have to own it and it's okay, right? We're
human. It happens. I wanted to remind myself to tell you, so at the back of the planner is a bucket list, and your Africa trip is on my bucket list.
Oh, awesome. That's great. Okay, you have to get on my mailing list, because I'm sending out emails now because we're working on our next safari. So we'll get you on the email list, and because that is you know, the people who have been really successful going with me are the people that planned. They put it on their bucket list. They made a plan so that they could handle it financially, so that they were prepared riding wise, and they had, you know, like. I'm just thinking about somebody who just came with us on this last safari. I saw her like a year before, and I was like, you know, this is what you need to do to be ready. You need to go ride a whole bunch of different horses, because the horse you're on, you're so used to, and she did it. And she had a fabulous time because she planned that out and found places and made plans to, you know, ride the different horses. And then people gave her Christmas presents of things to buy, like her safari clothes and all that sort of stuff. It was awesome.
See? And that's, again, with planning, it doesn't mean it's going to happen that second. No, but you're being intentional about it. You're putting it out to the universe. You're consciously, aware of it. It's powerful.
And the other thing, it makes me think of, I don't know if you remember Jane Savoy, and her book, That Winning Feeling. And she wanted to go to the Olympics. And then it turned out that she went to the Olympics, but she didn't actually ride, but she still got there. And so by putting it out that that's what she wanted to do and she wanted to go, sometimes it's not the way we think it's going to play out, but it still happens.
It still happens. So I want to say to Callie, I wish we were all doing that too. Callie Martin.
Yeah. So if you were to tell somebody, like, what are 3 things that they could do starting tomorrow to start going slower, to be faster, to making changes in their life? What are 3 things they could implement tomorrow morning?
So sleep. I'm a huge fan of good sleep. And I think we all are sleep deprived. We scroll right to the second we are going to bed. I would love everyone to shut off their phones at least an hour before they go to bed and try to go to bed earlier. The more sleep you get before midnight, it's a different type of sleep that's really good for our brains, for, not getting Alzheimer's, better memory, all kinds of stuff. So setting yourself up to feel good in the morning, that would be number 1. Number 2 would be single task. Focus on single tasking, and you'll be surprised at how many spots that you don't do it, because we all think I could do this and this at the same time. So single task and see how that makes you feel. And 3, slowing down. I would say put that there. I think everyone has on their phone, it tells them how much time they're spending on their phone. I know with iPhone, it's part of it. Yeah. Track that for a week and see if you can't be off your phone a little less time each day. Like, I have a real goal to wean people off of their phones and back into their real lives, because I think that's where life should be lived, in real life. And if you don't post it, you can still enjoy it. So.
Oh, thank you for saying that. But just because you didn't post it doesn't mean it didn't happen.
Exactly. And these are all things, like, I was fully on board the train. Like, I would do something fun with my kids and then be like, guys, can we do that again? Because I have to film it. And they'd be like, Mom. And now I think, what was I doing? Like, just be in the moment.
Yeah, that's the thing, is that because we have this camera video thing we call a phone. I don't know why we call it a phone anymore. That's the last thing we do on it.
Right. No, if someone calls, I'm like, you better be dead. Call me.
Right. And it's like, if we don't record every moment, it's like it didn't happen. Right. It used to be, again, going on safari, it's changed a bit, but the Maasai never wanted their picture taken because it was like taking part of their soul.
Right.
And so, it's difficult, because when you're, trying to reach people from a marketing perspective, you've got to be out there, but at the same time, there's got to be a balance, right?
Like,
and
you
said
it, Wendy, the middle. Let's focus on finding the middle, what works for us. In your planning, in your riding, in your social media. And then we can all think that this is a good thing, I'm not trying to bash social media. I just want people to feel balanced.
There's a place for it. And I think that's, I look at the internet as, in terms of childhood development, and it's kind of entering its teen years. It's kind of like in the 13s, and there's a lot of, crap that happens in high school, and, kids aren't nice to each other and that sort of thing. We don't have the wisdom to really understand it all yet. We're so trapped in the immediacy of it, and the glitz of it, and the attraction and the dopamine, but I don't think we fully understand how this is really, how to be wise consumers, if you will, of the internet, And I think now we're starting to get to the point where we're like, wait a second, I need to reclaim my life. What I find fascinating is we're going back to vinyl. Have you noticed? You go into Walmart and there's records. I'm like,
records. There's a backlash. People really, and this, our title, I think, is what the whole world wants. They want to slow down to feel more. You know, we're all tired of just this constant fast.
Yep. So it sounds like even just, you know, turning off your phone 5 minutes earlier, or just start with, and that again, you can just start with a minute and then gradually add. I think sometimes we think we have to like completely unplug, and that's a really tough thing to do.
Right. Micro steps. You're going in the right direction. Like that's what we want.
Yep. Yeah. Well, this has been awesome, Jenna. Thank you so much for joining me. And Julie's just been sitting there smiling the whole time.
I love getting to work with both of you. You just both are like wealth of knowledge in your individual spaces. So I love hearing you guys talk. And like I said, I just feel like you align on so many things. So it's a joy.
We love you, Julia. Thank you for bringing it together.
So Jenna, how can people find you?
So if you go to the smartequestrian.com, the 2024 planner is on there. 2 different planner covers. One, I always do one where there's a plastic so you can put your picture, your own picture in. So the planner is you with your horse. You can change it up. And then one cover has a horse on it. And then just join us in our Facebook group, the Smart Equestrian Planner Group. And we're going to plan for an amazing 2024. And you get clarity, you have the tool to do it, and then you have a community to support you every step. To me, it's the most surefire way to create the future that you want.
Yep. And then thank you so much for that. And it's been a pleasure I haven't seen you in ages.
I know. I follow you on social media, so I feel like
there you go. All right. Well, thank you all, everybody, for joining us tonight. We'll get this posted up in the group, and have a wonderful evening. And again, thanks, Julia. It's been great to see you smiling and laughing in the background this whole time.
Thank you, Julia. Thank you, Wendy. Thanks, everyone.
Bye.